The screen went red before anyone understood what was happening. System owner unassigned. Compliance halted. Contact Marin Keaton. Voices cracked across the demo room, executives stumbling over each other. Investors whispering sharp curses. And Bryden Hale, the CEO's son, frozen with his hand still hovering over the keyboard. Someone shouted my name as if I might materialize out of thin air. Another voice asked who had let the system go live without authorization. Then the room dissolved into panic, and for a moment all I heard was my own breath, steady and distant, like I was watching it from somewhere far away. That was the day everything snapped. But the truth had begun 2 weeks earlier. Allison Drake didn't look up when I stepped into her office. She just tapped her pen against a stack of onboarding forms and said, "Sit, Marin." The tone, flat, impatient, already told me this wasn't a conversation. It was a verdict. She slid a folder toward me. "We need you to train Bryden, starting tomorrow." I didn't touch it. "Allison, Bryden cannot tell the difference between information technology and artificial intelligence. The man asked me last week if a data pipeline was a type of plumbing." "That is not the point." She cut in. "He is the CEO's son. He is going to lead innovation. You will make sure he looks prepared." "No," I said, calm, not confrontational. Just a line I was finally willing to draw. "This is not what I do." Allison leaned back, smiling in a way that wasn't a smile at all. "Refusing means you're quitting." I felt the words settle heavy in the room. "Then I guess I'm not training him." She laughed an easy, dismissive sound. "You'll walk out with nothing. People like you always do." She slid the exit papers forward and waited. I signed them because there was nothing left to say. She watched my pen move, satisfied, as if she had finally found the lever to pull me out of her way. When I stood to leave, she didn't bother to hide her smirk. She believed she'd ended my career, and I let her believe exactly that. 12 years is a long time to stay invisible, but that was what Phoenix Corps demanded from me: quiet fixes, long nights, and the kind of steady patience no one ever applauds. I held the system together the way some people hold a family together, stitching broken pieces before anyone noticed they were falling apart. Back then, Allison Drake was the one who pushed me forward. "You're the only one who understands the architecture. Marin," she used to say, "stay close, and I'll make sure you're protected." Somewhere along the line, that promise changed. I remember the first day Bryden Hale walked in designer jacket, perfect hair, carrying a camera crew like accessories. "I'm here to modernize the entire brand," he announced, shaking hands like a celebrity greeting fans. "Give me a week and I'll take this place viral." Allison laughed too loudly. "Bryden's going to bring fresh energy. You two will get along." He turned to me. "So, you're the tech person I'll need you to explain. Like, everything. I'm more of a visionary." I said, "Do you know what Phoenix Corps actually does?" He blinked, confused. "It is like the company's super-intelligent brain thing." "Right." Allison shot me a warning look, the kind that told me to keep the peace. Her tone shifted that same month sharper, nervier. She hovered over my work, asked who I was talking to, questioned how long tasks should take. Every suggestion I made was suddenly too cautious or too old school. Outside of work, life pulled in harder ways. I drove to Edmonds every weekend to check on my mother. The assisted living staff whispered about rising care costs. Her medication alone was more than $5,000 a month. I told them I'd keep up. I always had. That was the year a federal contract required external compliance ownership, and I created Keaton Systems LLC. It was a formality, a thin layer of protection around my work in case anything went wrong. I never expected it to matter, but that small signature mine waited quietly for the moment everything else began to crack. Allison waited by my desk like a guard posted at a prison gate. She crossed her arms the moment I walked in. "You have 15 minutes, personal items only. Everything else stays." "I know the rules," I said, pulling an empty box toward me. She stepped closer. "And you will not touch a single digital asset." It has already revoked your access. Her voice carried a brittle satisfaction, like she had been rehearsing this moment. I opened my top drawer, old sticky notes, a cracked mug, a photo of my mother from her healthier years. I placed them gently inside the box. No one spoke. When I reached the bottom drawer, Allison leaned in. "What is that?" she demanded. I pulled out a thin black binder labeled KS-04 Compliance Protocol. Its corners were worn from years of use, but the title was still clear. Allison snorted. "Take whatever trinkets you want. None of that matters now?" I slid the binder into my box. "If you say so." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said, keeping my tone calm. "Just packing up." Truth was, Case 04 was the opposite of a trinket. It contained the original licensing agreement tying Phoenix Corp's AI compliance framework to Keaton Systems LLC. The company had renewed it every spring for a decade until the last restructuring, when someone forgot the paperwork entirely. Without that renewal, every system connected to Phoenix Corp relied on my external ownership to pass audits. They needed my signature for government certifications, high-risk deployments, even routine security checks. They just never realized it because Phoenix Corp never failed. I never let it. Allison tapped her heel impatiently. "Are you almost done? Some of us have real work." I closed the box. "I'm done." As I walked away, she called after me. "This company will be fine without you." I didn't argue. The truth would reach her soon enough, straight through the one protocol she had never bothered to read. The contract sat open on my laptop, the cursor blinking beside the line that mattered more than anything Allison Drake had ever said to me. Licensing status active. I hovered over the toggle, one breath in, one breath out. Then I clicked. Active. Paused. Owner unavailable. A soft confirmation tone chimed. Nothing dramatic, nothing explosive. But I felt it in my chest like a shift in gravity, subtle, irreversible. I closed the laptop and set it aside. The real noise would not come from me, inside the company. The silence broke fast. "Why is this not running?" Bryden Hale's voice carried through the engineering floor. "The script says, press enter." I pressed enter. Someone muttered. "You pressed escape." Bryden snapped back. "Same thing. From what I heard later." Two engineers exchanged a look. Neither said anything loud enough for Allison to hear. Allison swept into the room anyway. "How's the onboarding going?" Bryden lifted his hands helplessly. "The system is acting weird. Look at this window. It keeps flashing red lines. Logs refresh like that." Allison snapped. "It's normal. Everyone needs to stop panicking over little glitches." One of the senior engineers cleared his throat. "It is not just the logs. The compliance layer is throwing repeated pings. It cannot verify the A loud alert cut him off." Then another, then a third. Across every connected screen, the message pulsed, "Responsible party missing." "Certification will self-nullify in 72 hours." Allison lunged for the keyboard. "It is nothing. A false flag. I am deleting it." "You cannot delete a compliance alert," the engineer said carefully. "Well, I just did," she snapped, closing windows faster than she could read them. "Focus on your tasks. Everything is running smoothly." No one replied. They all saw the same thing she pretended not to: the first hairline fracture in a system that had never once failed while I was there. And now that fracture had room to grow. Investor Day began with Allison's voice slicing through the conference room. "Our new innovation lead, Bryden Hale, will present the system." She said it like she was announcing royalty. Bryden straightened his blazer. "I got this." He whispered to no one in particular, waving at the board members as if they were fans waiting for autographs. A government partner joined through the conference line. "We are ready when you are." Allison nodded at Bryden. "Go ahead. Launch Phoenix Corp." He clicked. The screen froze. A moment later, the message appeared in bold red text: "Compliance gate refused. Owner not found." Someone coughed. Someone else whispered a curse. Bryden forced a smile. Minor lag. It does that sometimes. He clicked again. The system beeped loudly. Another message slammed across the monitor. Audit layer status. No owner. Execution blocked. The government partner spoke first. Who is responsible for this system today? This is a violation of federal protocol. Bryden's voice cracked. I have the script here. It says the architecture is fully functional, and all ownership layers are. They are not. The partner interrupted. This is not optional. Identify your compliance owner immediately. Allison stepped forward. There must be a glitch. Phoenix Core has never failed a demo. She grabbed the keyboard and began clicking through restricted menus. Every tab she opened led to the same message. Contact Keaton Systems, LLC. Then another line she could not escape. Owner Maren Keaton, required for certification. Her breath hitched. One of the investors leaned back. You fired the woman who built the backbone of your system. Allison's voice thinned. She refused a directive. We had no choice. The government partner spoke again. What you have is a system without a registered authority. That is not a directive issue. It is a compliance breach. Two investors stood and quietly exited the room. Bryden looked at Allison, terrified. What do we do? Allison didn't answer. She just stared at the screen where my name repeated again and again, the one file she thought she could delete, now flashing in every corner of their collapse. My phone started ringing before I finished pouring my coffee. First one call, then another. Then a line of missed calls filling the screen like falling dominoes. The first was from the company's main number. The second was a blocked caller. The third was Allison's direct extension. I set the phone face down on the table. A moment later, it vibrated again, longer this time. Then again. And again. I let every call pass. When the buzzing finally stopped, a voicemail icon appeared. I tapped it only because the silence afterward felt intentional. Allison's voice came through the speaker thin, strained, shaking. Maren, it is Allison. Please call me back. It is urgent. Something is wrong with the system. You need to just call me. I deleted the message and slipped my phone into my bag. 2 hours later, I sat across from a compliance attorney in a quiet downtown office. Harlan Bishop had spent more than 30 years navigating federal tech contracts. He adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the Keaton Systems LLC documents. It is airtight, he said. Once they marked you as voluntarily resigned, the external license automatically shifted to paused status. That was written into the original clause. I remember. I said. They did not. He nodded. They assumed you were internal. But Phoenix Core's compliance ownership is legally yours. The company cannot override it without your authorization, and they cannot accuse you of misconduct without contradicting their own resignation paperwork. My phone buzzed again. This time I glanced at the screen, 3 more calls. All blocked. Then a new voicemail. I played it only because Harlan gestured for me to. Allison's voice was sharper now, brittle from fear. Maren, this is getting out of hand. If you do not call me, we will need to classify your actions as intentional interference. You have put the company at risk. This is not a game. Harlan raised an eyebrow. Interference requires intent and access. You have neither. I forwarded the voicemail to him and locked my phone. He saved it without comment. Outside his office window, the city moved in steady patterns, unconcerned with the panic unraveling inside the building I used to work in. I stood, gathering my bag. That should be everything. It is, Harlan said. They cut the cord themselves, and with that, I walked out, leaving the calls unanswered as they kept coming faster, louder, and far too late. By the next morning, the company was eating itself alive. I heard pieces of it through people who still cared enough to whisper. Engineers were pulled into conference rooms one by one. Allison stood at the whiteboard, scribbling names, drawing arrows, circling departments like she was mapping a conspiracy. It had to be someone on your team. She insisted. Someone tampered with the owner registry. A junior engineer pushed back. We do not have permissions to touch ownership layers. Only Marin had them. Another added. Every compliance checkpoint still lists her ID. The logs are clean. No one touched them. Allison's tone sharpened. Then the system is wrong. A senior engineer replied quietly. The system has never been wrong. The room fell silent. Someone finally said what none of them wanted to voice. You signed the compliance report last night, the one saying everything was ready. That puts responsibility on you. Allison's face flushed. I signed because I was told it was routine. I was not informed. The government partner's voice crackled through the speakerphone, interrupting her. This is Officer Sullivan. A formal inquiry has been filed. We will need to review the compliance chain of command immediately. Allison's breath tightened. This is a misunderstanding. It is not. Sullivan replied. Your report claims all systems were compliant. The logs state that ownership was unassigned. That contradiction falls under your purview. When the call ended, no one spoke to her. That same afternoon, my phone rang again, but not with panic. A soft voice introduced herself. Marin, this is Claire from the Northwest Housing Alliance. We have followed your work on Phoenix Core for years. We need guidance on safe AI implementation for public housing. Would you be open to consulting? I sat back in my chair. How did you get my information? You published a paper through Keaton Systems LLC 3 years ago. Your insights were ahead of their time. We were waiting for the right moment. I let out a slow breath. What exactly do you need? Everything, she said. And we are prepared to compensate you fairly. It was not just an offer. It was a door one no one at the company ever intended for me to reach. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. A chance to build something that mattered, untouched by egos, untethered from people who saw me only as a tool. When I finally answered, my voice was steady. Let us talk next steps. The conference room felt smaller with the 3 of them on one side of the table. Allison, the CEO, and Bryden while I sat with my attorney, Harlan Bishop, on the other. No one spoke at first. The CEO finally broke the silence. Marin, thank you for coming. We need you to reactivate the compliance framework immediately. Harlan placed a hand on the paperwork between us. We are here to listen to your proposal. Allison leaned forward. Her voice trembled. It is simple. You return your credentials, sign this updated non-disclosure, and help us get through the audit. After that, we can discuss reinstatement. No, I said. The CEO's brows shot up. Excuse me, I am not returning as staff, I said. Keaton Systems LLC does not provide emergency compliance services without a contract. If you want access, you will need to apply as a client. Bryden swallowed hard. He had not said a word since I walked in. The CEO's voice hardened. We are offering you your job back. I do not want my job back, I replied. You ended that relationship when Allison marked me as voluntarily resigned. Allison lifted the stack of forms. Just sign these. Marin, you know how much damage has been done. We need your cooperation. No emergency work. I repeated, no shortcuts. And Allison will not be part of the chain of command if we move forward. The CEO slammed his hand on the table. You cannot dictate our structure. Harlan remained calm. Legally. She can. Your system is missing its registered owner. The liability is yours. Allison's voice cracked. Marin, please. We are out of time. I stood, gathering my bag. You told me I was leaving empty-handed. I said quietly. Turns out you never checked what my hands were holding. Bryden finally looked up, eyes wide with something like recognition, maybe guilt, maybe fear. I walked to the door without hesitation. Behind me, no one said another word. The audit began at 9 in the morning. By 9:03, it was over. Officer Sullivan's voice came through the speakerphone in clipped tones. Phoenix Core cannot proceed. The ownership registry is incomplete. All connected certifications are invalid. The CEO tried to rally. "We have internal documentation." "No," Sullivan said. "You filed a compliance report last night. It was signed by Allison Drake. That document contradicts the system logs." "This is a breach." Allison's breath hitched. "I only signed because I was told Sullivan cut her off." "You held the authority. You assumed responsibility. You will receive a formal notice within 48 hours. The line disconnected. Silence strangled what was left of the room. By noon, 3 major contracts were suspended. By afternoon, a federal notice barred Allison from any tech leadership role for 5 years. An internal memo confirmed Bryden's access had been revoked until further review. Investors withdrew in waves. Tens of millions evaporated. I heard none of this firsthand. It came through small bursts of messages from people who still cared enough to say, "You were right," or "Please tell me you are okay." That same week, I sat across from Claire at the Northwest Housing Alliance. She slid a contract toward me. "We want you to lead our AI governance initiative. Your LLC will have full autonomy." Her sincerity steadied something inside me. I signed. The next day, I met with the care team at my mother's facility in Edmonds. The coordinator reviewed her chart and asked gently, "Will you be able to continue treatment at this level? The medication alone is more than $5,000 a month." "I can," I said. For the first time in years, I meant it without flinching. Relief softened my mother's face when I told her everything was handled. She squeezed my hand, confused but comforted. As I walked her back to her room, a quiet certainty settled in my chest. The damage Allison tried to inflict had never been mine to carry, only hers to face. Allison's email arrived just after dawn, one long paragraph of apologies layered between excuses. I never meant for things to go this far. I was under pressure. "You know how the company works. I hope you can understand." I read it once, then closed the screen. I did not respond. There was nothing left in that story worth returning to. Instead, I walked toward the pier overlooking Elliott Bay, the morning air cool enough to sting. I opened my phone and refreshed the onboarding roster for my training initiative with the Northwest Housing Alliance. 53 names. 53 women who had been pushed aside, overlooked, or spoken to the way Allison once spoke to me. Some were returning to the workforce after raising families. Some were starting over after years in dead-end roles. All of them were looking for a way in. Claire had told me the night before, "You are giving them a ladder no one gave you." Maybe that was true. Maybe it was simply time. As I scrolled through the list, a notification appeared. "Allison Drake has left the company effective immediately." No title, no farewell message, just a departure. I slipped the phone back into my coat pocket. The water below shifted with the tide, steady, patient, unbothered by the chaos people created for themselves. I let myself breathe with it. Not relief, not triumph, just a quiet acknowledgement that I was no longer tethered to their small view of me. I whispered the words aloud, not for them, but for myself. Empty-handed was never the problem. Being underestimated was. I turned away from the water and started walking. The day ahead was full 53 women waiting for me. A program to build, a future I finally recognized as mine. If they could not empty my hands, they could never dictate what I would build next.